You're listening to the True North Success Podcast. Real stories of personal, professional, and financial wins from Alberta's best. With your hosts, Gary Ma and Amy Kim.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the show. Today, my special guest is Shazma Mithani. She's an emergency physician at the Royal Alexandra and Stoley Children's Hospitals, caring for adult and pediatric patients since 2014, with experience in healthcare leadership and advocacy and public health communication. She brings frontline insight into medicine and systems strategy, translating complex health issue into conversations everybody can understand. It's a real pleasure to have her on the show today. Welcome, Shazma.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So, Shazma, I gave a brief overview of your success, but can you fill in the detail of what your business is all about?
Yeah, my business is more, I guess, my personal brand and the kind of spaces that I create in, including social media. I have a podcast myself as well. It's called the Doc Talk Podcast, where I co-host with one of my great friends and family doctor in Toronto, Dr. Sheila Jayasinghe. And I'm a writer as well. And so all of that kind of encompasses what my business is as myself as a brand. And so as you mentioned off the top, I'm an ER doctor in Edmonton. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I really saw pretty clearly the importance of health communication and science communication in an effective way. Pretty much a lot of people who I see in the ER are coming in for reassurance. They're coming in because they don't have access to reliable health information. We saw over the course of the pandemic that misinformation has certainly continued to spiral out of control. And so I decided to lend my voice into this space and be a trusted, reliable source of health information that makes different health scenarios really easy to understand, break them down for my audiences, and hopefully be able to answer the looming questions that people have about health and their bodies.
Awesome. And so you work on the front line of emergency medicine and also bring experiences in healthcare leadership and advocacy and public health communication. So what do you think sets apart in the medical field that are there any approaches or skills that you use naturally that others might find challenging?
I think as an emergency doctor, a lot of the skills that I have in that space very much lend well to health systems advocacy and leadership. So just to take a step back, in the emergency room, we are kind of at this interface of community care. So, your family doctor, walk-in clinics, your other doctors that are in the community, and acute care where you come into the ER and then you might need to be admitted to hospital and then get admitted, have surgery, have a long hospital stay. And because of that, ER doctors have a very good overview of the entire healthcare system because we feel pressures from both sides of that. We also see very vulnerable patients in our emergency departments. I myself one of the hospitals I work in is an inner city ER, so lots of equity deserving populations, unhoused patients, people who use drugs. And so these are patients that don't have a voice themselves, and many of us feel compelled to advocate on their behalf. Working in a Canadian system, any sort of pressure that we see in the community or in acute care is felt even more magnified in the ER in terms of system challenges and barriers in order to provide patient care. And so that also lends itself well to leadership and advocacy, because any small change in the system can have actually a tremendous impact on our ability to practice medicine safely, effectively, and efficiently in the ER. And then beyond that, I also am, I have to take a leadership role in the patients that I see. These are patients who are coming in. It's often the worst day of their life, whether it's something that's small like an ankle sprain or someone that comes in with a cardiac arrest. These are scary moments for people. And in the chaos of the ER, it's important to have a leader who people can look to when things are uncertain and things are, like I said, chaotic or a bit out of control, to kind of bring people back and take that control of the room that's needed to make sure that patients have the best outcomes possible. And so then that translates out of emergency medicine, out of the ER into the other spaces that I'm a part of. So I advocate very strongly for the healthcare system to make sure that every patient continues to have equitable access to public healthcare. I advocate for the barriers that we face in medicine. I advocate for vulnerable populations. And then I advocate for good health literacy and education, because information and knowledge is power, and that is really what helps people to be able to engage in and manage their own health as effectively as possible too.
Amazing. Yeah, awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So, I always curious about like how get into what makes you like interested in getting into health industry.
Yeah, it was kind of like an evolving journey. I definitely like over the course of junior high and high school really enjoyed biology and chemistry both in particular. And I actually always thought that I wanted to be a researcher. So when I went to undergrad at the University of Alberta, I actually started a pharmacology degree, which is on the research and development of different medications and drugs, and really enjoyed the science and development part of that, but it was missing the people part for me. And so I did a couple of summers doing research in labs, and it just still felt like there was something missing for me. And so as I reflected back and thought about how all of those interests could kind of come together, pursuing a career in medicine really made sense for what I was wanting to get out of my career.
Wow, wow. Yeah, that's a very interesting, amazing story. So based on your experience translating complex that health issue for the public, and what guideline would you give to listeners who are trying to improve or maintain their health? Like, are there any few like practical habits or strategies that can make a real difference in everyday life?
Yeah, it really comes down to that it's the boring stuff that makes a difference. And so right now in the health world, in the social media space, certainly there's a lot of talk about longevity medicine, about all these different supplements that you can take. You know, we hear about red light panels and vibration plates and all of these different, this concoction of things that you can take to live longer, but the evidence shows that it's the boring and simple stuff that actually makes the most difference. So getting up and moving your body every day, exercising regularly, eating a well-balanced diet. You don't need supplements unless you have a diagnosed deficiency. So eating a well-rounded diet, not smoking, reducing your alcohol intake, having good social connections, having a family doctor who can help provide preventative care for you. So having your blood pressure under control, having your diabetes managed, having your cholesterol under control. These are all evidence-based ways that, yes, they sound boring, they're not sexy, but that is what time and time again shows that is the best way for you to improve your overall life and to live a happy and healthy life into the future.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I can relate to that because we, at the end, we are a human, and it's all like has to be approached from the holistic point of view, that as a mentally and physically and emotionally. So like have to go out, get some sunshine every so often, and exercise and have a good nutrition as well. So it's not just about like once you get into the like already ill, it's kind of there's so much you can do. So I think it's better to do many things and best things before preventing that illness.
Absolutely. I mean, in the ER, I see a breakdown of preventative health, right? When I see people who come in and end up having cancers diagnosed, when I see people who come in that have strokes and heart attacks, this is a breakdown of preventative medicine. It often has to do with people not being able to afford medications, not having access to preventative and primary care. The people who have regular family doctors that can manage those diseases, who can screen for cancer at the appropriate times, these are the things that have a very high return on investment when it comes to our health.
That's right. Yeah. Sometimes I feel lazy, after you eat, and then now outside is so cold and a lot of snow. You don't feel like you want to go out for a walk. But definitely it pays off when you challenge yourself and have to stay active, even though during the winter. Definitely, yeah. This is something that I need to work on too.
Totally. And in the end, you always feel better after getting that bit of movement. It's just that inertia that you have to overcome to get there for sure.
100%. Okay, cool. So what is one of the biggest lessons and challenges you have to overcome in your career, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things over the last few years that I have learned is that I think in a lot of situations when you are in a leadership role, when you're in a professional role, you are very rigid in the way that you think. So the way that we're taught in textbooks, the way that for me, that I'm taught in medical school and residency, like everything is very textbook. And then you get out into the real world and you realize that most things are actually not the way that they are taught to you. There's nuance, there's flexibility, there's differences in the way that patients present, and also that there's still a lot of things that we don't know. So in the medical field, there's still so much that continues to be learned, and knowledge that is gained, and that patients actually need to be and are such an important part of that. And so I think a big learning lesson, I think for me and hopefully for medicine in general, is just to continue to approach things with curiosity and with an open mind, and to understand and realize that we don't know everything and there's still things that we're learning.
I love that. I love how your chronology went that there's so much we haven't find out yet, and science and medical is so much that only based on based on what we found out. And there's so many things that we couldn't do it because of the maybe technology or the knowledge is not there yet. So I love that how you're open-minded and then learning new and adopting new ideas like that too. So yeah, love that. So okay, so it sounds like things are going very well with you and for you and your business. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Many business medical professionals are earning a strong income right now, but it often requires significant invest of time and energy. So looking ahead, the common goal is to maintain the level of income and lifestyle while working less, especially with inflation at all-time high. So as a result, many people are exploring ways to generate income outside of their primary work, and such as investing in stock, cryptocurrency, precious like metals, or real estate. What are your thoughts about income outside of work?
Yeah, I think I'll start by saying as physicians, we are very privileged to be in the financial position that we are. I mean, we are in the top 1%, and yes, it's a high burnout career and a high burnout field, and there are other nuances to it as well. I mean, we have a delayed start in income earning because of how long school is. We are contractors, so we're kind of self-employed, which means that we don't have benefits. We need to kind of save for our own retirement and pay down our student debt. However, all of that being said, we are still in an immensely privileged financial situation. I can still put food on my table very easily. I can, spend time with my family and travel with my family and have the work flexibility that I can cut down on shifts if I need to and still be continuing to do well. And so I want to start by acknowledging that. Now, that being said, I mean, emergency medicine in particular is known to be the highest burnout specialty in medicine. Certainly coming out of the pandemic, I can attest to that personally. It was a very, very challenging time to be an ER doctor, and it continues to be with the ongoing system barriers that we have. And so that has been also a big driver for me trying to explore things that are outside of clinical medicine. So still kind of within medicine or medicine adjacent, but kind of outside of that shift work where I'm going into work and continuing to feel that burnout. And so I actually think it's really important, no matter what career you're in, especially if it's, a highly demanding career, to diversify in terms of what you are doing from an income earning perspective. And so for me, that includes speaking engagements. It includes my social media platform. It includes partnerships with with aligned and similar valued other brands and companies where we can kind of support each other and help promote each other's work that we're doing. And it needs to be something that you love doing, right? So if you don't like real estate, for example, don't do that, because then it just becomes another burden on your mind and on your well-being. But it needs to be something that you love. And so I really enjoy writing. I enjoy creating content. I enjoy speaking, giving workshops, all of these sorts. I enjoy producing my podcast with my co-host. And so these are all things that bring me a lot of joy that still are using the knowledge that I've gained, in medical school and residency and as my career as a physician, but they're able to be expressed in a different and more creative way. And that fills my cup, even though it doesn't necessarily, it can't completely replace my clinical medicine. It allows me to have, a bit more flexibility and then go back to work and still be able to love what I do.
Yeah, awesome. Okay, cool. So, thank you so much for sharing your time today and some of your great insights and tips with us. So it was a great pleasure to have you on the show today, Shazma. If people would like to connect with you, how can get a hold of you?
So you can find me on all of my social media channels, so Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, with the handle at Dr. Shazma Mithani, SHAZMAMITHANI, or you can check me out on my website at drshazmamithani.com.
Awesome. And is there anything else would you like to share your insights as wrapping up the interview?
I think, similar to what I said at the end there, it's just really important that you do what you love. I mean, there's so many, life is short. As an ER doctor, I see how short life is. We could walk out the door tomorrow and get hit by a car, and it's completely unpredictable. And so, don't get too caught up in the small stuff. Work is also just work. And again, I say that from a position of privilege, but I have 2 young kids. It's pretty wild to see how quickly time slips away and how quickly they grow up. And there's time that you can't get back. And so just lean into the things that make you happy, your family, your friends, and work is work. And yes, it's necessary, but it's also important to find joy outside of those things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Shazma. It was a great pleasure having you on the podcast and hearing your share insights and experience with us. So we truly appreciate your time and the perspective you brought to the conversation.
Thanks so much for having me today.
Thank you.
Want to share your success story? Apply to be a guest at truenorthsuccessshow.com/guest. We'd love to hear from you.